In today's video, we have lots of NHL news and rumors to take a look at. We got big news from the NHL waiver wire involving players from Montreal and Detroit, Alex Barré-Boulet and Ville Husso. Some trade rumors around some goaltenders, including Philip Grubauer, as well as Brandon Tanev in Seattle. Plus, is Montreal Canadiens netminder Samuel Montembeault playing himself into a leading contending role to be Team Canada's goalie at the Four Nation Faceoffs. All that plus some injury updates and Dylan Guenther's making history coming up next. Welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As you can see, I'm in a makeshift TSH studio. Obviously, just busy weekend here, Canadian Thanksgiving, and my normal studio is a little bit off limits, unfortunately, for tonight. So we're going to make do here with a little makeshift kitchen video, which I've now dubbed TSH Studios, as you can see here behind me. Big news from the NHL waiver wire today. A couple of players on waivers, including Habs forward Alex Barré-Boulet. Unfortunately for him, ends up on waivers yet again. He did make the opening night roster. Has played the first couple of games for the Montreal Canadiens, but finds himself on waivers. Of course, didn't really get a lot done with the ice time he was given, and they're obviously going to give a chance for somebody else to play here. So Barré-Boulet is a player who's experienced waivers before, has been kind of up and down throughout his career. He could get claimed, but it wouldn't be shocking if he clears either, and they can assign him to Laval and give somebody else a shot here on the roster. The bigger news in the waiver wire today was the Detroit Red Wings placing goaltender Ville Husso on waivers. Now, right now, the Red Wings do have three goaltenders. Besides Ville Husso, they've got Cam Talbot and, of course, Alex Lyon. And Ville Husso started the Red Wings opening game of the season. He played opening night in a 6-3 loss to the Pittsburgh Penguins. He didn't make it through the whole game. He ended up getting pulled. Ville Husso gave out 4 goals and 14 shots, ended up giving way to Cam Talbot. Talbot came in. He did allow a couple more goals. Unfortunately, the Red Wings couldn't come back in that one. And then we saw Cam Talbot play the next game and get a shutout, and with a ton of shots at that. So certainly, the Red Wings are in a predicament here with their salary cap, and Husso just, didn't have a good look here early on. I was a little bit surprised in the sense that they gave him the opening night start, but clearly with his contract making $4.75 million, he is in the final year of it now. So at this point, it's only this year that he has. I don't know that he's going to get claimed. I mean, there are definitely teams out there that are reportedly looking for goaltending help, and certainly a scenario where, because it's 1 year, maybe he gets claimed, but it's difficult to say. Now, I could see a more likely scenario ending up that if he clears, then the Red Wings can assign him to the minors, and then maybe he have a better shot at being traded. I don't suspect we're going to see the Red Wings carry 3 goaltenders for too long here. They got Sebastian Cossa coming on the way up. They want to make sure he gets ample playing time, of course, in the AHL as well. So it's not like they really need a veteran to go down. Plus, they have Jack Campbell in the organization. We don't know how long he's going to be away with the player assistance program. So he'll be a goalie to go to the minors later on once he does eventually return here. So it's hard to say what the future holds for Husso. It really does. But once he's cleared waivers, a trade might be more realistic. They'd have the opportunity to retain salary a little bit. Of course, and a trade would mean the next team that gets him theoretically could assign him to the minors and they don't have to necessarily put him right on the NHL roster. They could kind of slowly integrate him if they wanted to. They'd have some flexibility. So I don't know what happens here with Husso, but I do think that his time in Detroit likely is going to be coming to an end, whether or not it's right away or not. I think it's fair to say it's going to be his final year. I don't see a scenario where they re-sign him. So we'll see what happens with Ville Husso. We'll find out tomorrow afternoon if he's been picked up. And if he's not, like I said, once he clears waivers, sometimes you see scenarios where a trade can materialize. Now, some people I get this question a lot. Why would a team not pick a guy up on waivers but then trade for him later? Because a couple of things. For one, if you, depending on your cap and roster situation, you may need to have something subtracted off of your roster to take a new player in. So you might be interested in that player, but you need the team to take something from you. So that has to be a trade. Secondly, they may need them to clear waivers. Like I said, it gives them more flexibility so that they'll be like, okay, well, he's gone through waivers, so for the next 30 days, we could assign him to the minors. And he can be recalled, he can play some games, see how he looks before, making a long-term decision here. So at the end of the day, we'll see what happens, but it does give teams more flexibility in that sense. Some injury updates around the NHL. Eriksson Ek in Minnesota has a broken nose, did not travel today for their game against the Winnipeg Jets. Shouldn't be out too long. I would imagine when he comes back, he'll have a bubble or a different cage on his helmet, but he should be able to return sometime this week. He may miss another game, but I would say, one game, maybe more, or two at most. Like, it'll be this week sometime that he'll return. So he's a really important piece for Minnesota. So certainly, good that he's not going to be out too long. Jarrett Spurgeon at this point, their captain, and somebody who missed significant time last year, also re-injured in his day-to-day now. Sometimes, lower body injuries day-to-day, it can be hard to predict exactly, but he is going to miss some time. Of course, he did not play in today's game here as well. Newly acquired free agent defenseman Matt Roy in Washington also was injured. Waiting for an update to see what kind of timelines that Roy is dealing with. Former Edmonton Oilers and longtime Red Wings manager Kenny Holland, of course we know, might have a desire to keep working. It seems like if he can get another job either with a team or within the league, he's probably going to take it. I mean, he's at that age where retirement seems very reasonable, but some guys just are hockey lifers and they just don't have it in them to completely shut it down. Like, that competitive drive just remains no matter how old they might be. And Elliot Friedman was reporting yesterday that Kenny Holland might have options to work within the hockey operations department of the NHL. So not with a team, but with the league itself. So no guarantee that that's going to be something he's accepting, but apparently, from what Elliot was saying, it sounds like there's some potential offers there. So we'll see when Holland turns up. There had been some reports that he had talked to a few teams and that he might have been spending a little time with Utah. Not that there was an offer on the table or anything. It was really just about, due to some friendships, kind of exploring some things and kind of feeling things out. There probably would be a lot of teams that would want to offer him a consulting role or something. He'll land something. It's just a matter of kind of him taking the time to decide what he wants to do. Now, speaking of Utah, Dylan Guenther is on his way to making history, and to be honest, at this rate, he might be a player that we end up referring to as the breakthrough player of the year this year. A lot of us kind of raised our eyebrows when he signed that long-term lucrative deal with the Utah franchise here in the summer. After having really, he's played the equivalent to one full season. He had 82 games on his resume this summer, and he didn't really get last year, the beginning of the year, he ended up spending some time in the minors, split the season, but the second half he came up, stayed with the team, and he really kind of took off. And he's picked up where he's left off and more. So at this point, Dylan Guenther's become the 9th player in NHL history ever to score 5 goals in the team's first 3 games for players that are age 21 or under. So that is rather impressive. He's off to an incredibly hot start. And at this rate, that contract has the potential to be aging extremely well. It could be a team-friendly deal as early as right away. We knew when he played in junior and had a chance to play for Canada World Juniors and all that he had talent. There was no doubt he was a good goal scorer, sniper at times, and he's found his groove now at the NHL, and that franchise is off to a good start. That Utah game against the New York Rangers the other night was probably the best game of the season so far. So they put on a great show, lots of action, and an absolutely fun team to watch with all that young talent, which is certainly great to see. Before we get into the trade talk, I want to take a look at, because obviously we already talked about Ville Husso maybe being a trade target after he clears waivers, assuming he does. But we're going to get some more goaltending talk here in a minute. But first, I want to look at a goaltender that's had a phenomenal start to the year, and that's Samuel Montembeault with the Montreal Canadiens, picking up big victories over their rivals in Toronto and Ottawa. The Habs are 2-1 now in the season, which is, it's early, so it's don't plan the parade, don't get too excited just yet. But his play, especially compared to Caden Primo, has been phenomenal. He shut out the Leafs, and he only gave up one goal to the Sens. So in 2 games, he's given up 1 goal, and he's been good. He's had a lot of shots. And, at this point, there's already starting to be growing speculation that he might be playing, if he keeps this up, playing his way right into the Team Canada crest here to possibly be, if not the starter, then one of the top couple of goalies that at the very least makes the Canadian team for the four-nation face-off. And then, of course, the players that play in that roster are probably going to have an excellent shot at becoming Olympians to go to the Olympics for the next year in 2026. If you look at the options for Canada, not to downplay Montembeault's performance or his abilities, but goaltending is a little thin. They don't have the options like the Americans do, or even some of the European countries. You look at the U.S. and all the goaltending options, it's crazy how many different guys they could pick from. You've got Connor Hellebuck, you've got Thatcher Demko, you've got Jeremy Swayman. You're already, I've only named 3 guys, and it's holy crap, that's amazing. You look at Sweden with Markstrom and Allmark, and there's more. If the Russians are, I know they're not in the four-nation face-off, but if they're in the Olympics, you've got Shesterkin, you've got Sorokin, Vasilevsky. And then for Canada, you're looking at it and you're going outside of Montembeault, you've got Jordan Binnington, Tristan Jarry, you've got Aiden Hill, Logan Thompson, and it's ew. Not that these guys are scrubs or anything, but they're not at the level of some of these other guys. Now, Aiden Hill's a Stanley Cup winning goaltender, so is Jordan Binnington, but it really boils down to how they're playing at the time. Can they be, and they very well could be 2 of the 3 goaltenders that are picked anyways. Tristan Jarry, mentioned him because of the name recognition, but at the end of the day, we've talked to him about recently as well from Pittsburgh that he could very well find himself on the move. I mean, the Penguins have a young goaltender there in Joel Blomqvist, and they've got Nedeljkovic. Just Tristan Jarry is another trade target as well. He's another guy that we talked about the other night in the last day or two of being a potential goalie that could be on the move. I think Kyle Dubas would pull the trigger if the deal is right for sure. So with Montembeault playing as well as he has, if he keeps this up, you got to remember, it's really going to be a short, quick window here of about 6 weeks before these GMs have to name rosters for their countries. And the first month to 6 weeks of the season is going to play a major, role in who gets picked. So it's only been a couple of games, sure, but if he keeps this up, he could be on Team Canada, no doubt. And not only that, but he could be a starter. This is a very short tournament. To win the championship, you're only going to play 4 games, right? There's 4 teams in the tournament. You're going to play everybody once. So that's 3 games, and then the top 2 teams are going to play for the championship. It's a very short tournament, so you're going to want to ride the hot hand going into it. So we'll see, but Montembeault is doing phenomenal so far and going to be creating an opportunity for himself to get into that tournament and to gain a little bit more international recognition. Now, speaking of goaltending and more changes, not only is Montembeault creating positive storylines for himself in Montreal and Team Canada, you've got, like I said, Tristan Jarry in Pittsburgh doing the opposite, creating an opportunity where he's been already rumored to be somebody who could move if the right deal comes along, but Philip Grubauer in Seattle is another one to watch. Of course, as soon as Seattle announced that 5-year extension for Joey Daccord, made me think, okay, clearly they see Daccord as the future, and Grubauer has really been inconsistent during his time in Seattle, and I think his time there is coming to a close. Now, Elliot Friedman had speculated in his latest reporting that he could be a buyout target at the end of the year. Now, Philip Grubauer still has 2 more years left on his contract after the current season comes to a close here, making $5.9 million. So it's not going to be cheap by any means. What do you do with him, right? I mean, one scenario that's already been popping up here is the fact of the Avalanche, his old club, might be interested in a reunion. We know that I think frustration is starting to grow with Alexander Georgiev. He has not been good to start the season. He was shaky a lot last year. I don't know that they really have internal belief that they can win with him between the pipes. Grubauer wasn't their goalie when they won the Stanley Cup either. He was there before that, but he was somebody they wanted to keep. But unfortunately, with Seattle coming into the mix that offseason, kind of priced himself out of Colorado. They couldn't go to that number to match that $5.9 million, so he ended up going to Seattle. And then, of course, they after traded for Darcy Kemper, and Kemper helped them win the Stanley Cup. But certainly Grubauer, I think this is the last year for him as a member of the Kraken. I think a buyout is a realistic possibility if he does not get traded. But I do wonder if a team like the Avalanche, if they might consider a deal. Would they swap Georgiev for Grubauer, for example? That might even be something to take a look at too. So definitely a scenario to watch unfold there for sure. And another member of the Seattle Kraken, Brandon Tanev. We know we've heard about speculation regarding him in the offseason, that he was a player that with 1 year remaining, getting into the last year of a 6-year contract that he had signed, that he was getting interest. It's speculation about a potential move. At one point, there was rumors that he might be trying to be, that teams were interested in acquiring him, trying to woo his brother Chris Tanev to sign there. I know in Ottawa and Toronto were really the main ones in the mix there for Tanev, who ended up going on a pretty crazy long-term deal with the Leafs. So Brandon Tanev, unfortunately, the only drawback is he's making $3.5 million, which is for a fourth-line player, it's a lot. When he was first given that contract, he was more of a steady third-line player and kind of evolved more into a fourth-liner. Production was down last year, but he's had times recently, back even just a couple of years ago, where he can give you, 15 goals and, 35 points, which is more third-line production. $3.5 million for that isn't too bad. But he's not really given that consistently as of late. So Friedman describes that scenario with Brandon Tanev as a scenario to watch, a player to watch. He says there's a fair bit of interest in the player out there, and we know that Seattle at this point, hard to say, it's early, but I know I have predicted them to not make the playoffs, and if they're trending that way to not be a playoff team, especially with some salary retention, I can see Brandon Tanev being a very interesting, exciting player that teams might try to acquire. He's certainly somebody who gives you hard minutes, lots of effort, and occasionally some production, but even without it, there's a lot of intangibles there to like about his game that can be a great addition and asset. So we'll see what happens. The Kraken definitely have some players in the mix there with Grubauer and Tanev, and like I said before, Ville Husso is going to be a very interesting name to watch here over the next 24 to 48 hours as we determine if he clears waivers or he doesn't, where he could possibly end up. And like I said, I'd be curious as well to see in Montreal if Samuel Montembeault continues to play the way he has, if he plays himself into that Team Canada conversation. Let me know your thoughts on all of today's news and rumors down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, of course, make sure you subscribe and stick around, and we'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Hopefully I'll be back to my normal recording spot tomorrow. Otherwise, thanks for joining me in my makeshift kitchen THA Studios video tonight, and I'll catch you next time.